Hey YouTube, and welcome back to my kitchen. It feels like it's been so long since I have filmed or uploaded anything. It's been almost a month since my last upload. Things have been really crazy around here. We're really trying hard to get ready for the baby. I've got about 4.5, 5, 6-ish weeks left until my due date, so we've really been focusing on that a lot. I really needed to clean out my freezer to get ready for milk for the baby, so overnight last night I made some chicken stock. I had probably 5 or 6 chicken carcasses and a couple of bags of veggie scraps that I tossed into this pot. I just took it off, or really my husband did, it was too heavy for me. It just came off the stove, so it cooked for, let's see, probably close to 20 hours. It was kind of a while. This is the longest I've ever cooked stock before. I was really shooting for 24 hours, but I didn't want to have to wait until almost 8 or 9 p.m. to start pressure canning, which brings me to what we're going to be doing today. I am really excited and also super nervous. This is the very first canning experience I've ever done, and I'm jumping straight into pressure canning because chicken broth is a low acid food and it needs to be pressure canned. So today my husband and I went to Walmart and got some jars. Those are in my dishwasher. I have washed them, they're nice and clean. In the bottom I've got my quart jars, which is most of what I'll be filling up today. I'm gonna do a couple of pints, or probably more than a couple. I've got about 5 gallons of stock I need to can. And so I am in the process of getting that set up. My stock is cooling a little bit, but not too much. It's gonna stay hot for quite a while. And I've got my pressure canner set up over on the stove. I need to put a few inches of water in that, but it's already got the rack in there. And I am about to strain out my vegetables and chicken from the stock and get everything packed in there, and we will go through the canning process together. Now, before I start dishing up my jars and putting them in here, I wanted to give you a little peek of what the inside of my pressure canner looks like. The bottom thing with the holes in it is the rack. They don't always look like this. Sometimes they have little handles and you can sort of like load your jars and then place it into the canner, but mine didn't come with that. It just has this. If you don't have anything like this at all, you can use a dish towel. Of course, it's going to get soaking wet by the time you're done, but the purpose of this is just to keep the jars from rattling around on the bottom and breaking during the pressure cooking process. So something to cushion the jars down here is really important. You'll also see I've got some water down here at the bottom. This is a really huge pressure canner. I think it's 23 quarts. And so this is about 2 to 3 inches of water down at the bottom. I'm gonna turn my stove on again and get this simmering, but because I'm starting with hot broth, I also want hot water in my canner, or else again my jars will break if you put hot into cold or cold into hot. So I'm gonna go ahead and get that started. I'm gonna double check my pressure and time before I get started because I really don't want to compromise the quality of this chicken stock. I used a lot of ingredients and I'm really excited to use it. It's gonna be really delicious and rich. I can tell by the color and just because of how long I've been simmering it. So I definitely don't want to waste my food. I want to do this the right way and I don't want to do this dangerously. So I'm gonna go ahead and turn my stove on, get this simmering, and I'll be back in just a few minutes to dish out the stock. Alright, so we're just about ready to get started. I did double check and I need 1 inch of headspace from the top of the jar. I need to fill my jars 1 inch from the top, so I'll pick one up that doesn't have my funnel in it. You can see here the top of the jar neck that has the threading on it. The top piece of threading is about 1/4 inch, the bottom is about 1/2 inch, and then the very bottom of the neck, this part that goes all the way around, is about 1 inch. So I need to fill it all the way up to 1 inch of headspace before I put the lid on there. I'm also going to be straining out solids directly into the funnel instead of trying to drain this whole pot into multiple pots and bowls and things because I don't have another 5-gallon pot. This is the biggest thing I've got to work with. I've got a funnel that will make it easier to fill the jars. These are regular mouth, not wide mouth, and anyway, it's a liquid, so I want to make sure that I am using my funnel so I don't make a huge mess. And we will go ahead and start dishing this out. I'm gonna fill all of these quart jars. The quart jars need, for my elevation, 10 pounds of pressure for 25 minutes. If you're doing pints instead of quarts, it's 20 minutes instead of 25, but I'm gonna be doing quarts first. And I got about 3 gallons worth of quart jars, so I'll need several pint jars as well to get the rest of this stock utilized and canned, but we can go ahead and start getting these filled. Now I did make a little bit of a mess. I'm gonna go ahead and wipe the outside of these jars. I am going to also wipe them down after they've finished canning, but I don't wanna have a huge greasy mess while I'm moving these around later. They're gonna be slippery. So let me go ahead and wipe these down really quick. Ooh, that was hot. And also before I put the lids on these, I'm gonna wipe down the rim just to make sure. I can already see I've got a little bit of broth on the rim of this one. That is very hot. And you don't want any food particles on the rim because it might affect your seal. So you want to be really careful about that. I'm gonna go around all the rims before I stick these in the canner, but I just wanted to make a quick note about that. On to the next one. All right, I've gotten about a gallon done, so I wanted to take a break and show you how we're looking here. As you can see, I filled the jars up to this bottom line here, so there's an inch of head space. The lid will go on top and then the ring will go and cover this whole spot. Look at how rich that color is. I think it looks absolutely beautiful. There's no chunks in there, which is exactly what you want for stock. You can see this color change right here. Just about a ½ inch or so. That's actually fat, so that'll be easy to take off once these cool, but I'm not gonna worry about skimming that off for right now. And you can even leave it in, it's gonna add just more flavor. So I'm gonna go ahead and turn my camera off while I get the rest of these quart jars filled, and I will be back with you once I start putting everything in the canner. All right, so all my jars are filled, at least the quart jars are filled, and my canner is simmering. I don't know if you can hear that, but it is ready for the jar. So I'm gonna wipe the rims off to make sure I didn't spill. I know I spilled quite a bit, so let's make sure these are going to be sealed properly with no food particles on the rim. Let me go grab my lids and my rings. It's okay, we can do the rest in the next batch. Medium high, it has to vent, it has to have steam come out for 10 minutes, then we put that on, then we bring the pressure up to 10 and hold it there for 25 minutes, then we can turn it off, and then once that goes down to 0, we can take that off. So I've got a nice boil going in my canner. It's set to about 8 and I've turned it down to 7 because this was splurting a little water. I think you could have just seen just now some steam venting out of it. Here it goes again. When you see that pretty consistently, you want to go ahead and set your timer for 10 minutes. So that is what I'm doing now. And when my timer goes off, I will put my weighted gauge on that. I'm gonna wait for now because it has not been 10 minutes yet. And we will bring the pressure up to 10 pounds, which is right in the middle there. And we want to maintain 10 pounds of pressure for the entire processing time, which for a quart will be 25 minutes. If you're doing pints, then you're going to want to do it for 20 minutes. And I just learned today that actually you should not upscale the can size, so you may be tempted to do a half gallon of stock at a time, but that size of jar is really only recommended for clear juices like grape juice, apple juice. So I will not be doing that if I ever need that much stock. That's just 2 quarts rather for a half a gallon. So I still have plenty that I can use if I need to do that, but I don't really foresee myself needing that for just 2 or maybe 3 people. So I will go ahead and turn my camera off until it's ready to put the pressure gauge on. I'll show you what the pressure looks like when we're at that step, and we will go from there. All right, my timer just went off, so I'm gonna put my weighted gauge on where the steam is coming out, and I'm gonna bring the pressure up to 10 psi. Now I could only fit 7 quarts in the pressure canner at once, so I still have 5 left. I'll have to do another round after this. While I'm waiting on the first batch to be done, I'm going ahead and I've got a colander set over a big bowl, and I'm trying to drain as much liquid out of these scraps as I can, and that will be going into my pint-sized jars. Alright, it's taken a little bit of time, but we are just finally getting up to 10 pounds of pressure. We are almost there. I'm going to decrease the temperature in just a few minutes to make sure that I maintain 10 pounds. I have to maintain that 10 pounds of pressure for 25 minutes because I'm canning quart jars right now of stock. And if it dips below that 10 pound mark, then I have to start my timer all over again after I get it back up to 10 pounds. So I'm gonna be really careful. I'm just gonna turn it down a little bit right now, about a half of a tick. And if it continues to increase, I will turn it down a little bit more, but I do not want it to drop below that 10 pound mark. So wish me luck. Here is probably the most nerve-wracking part for me. Hopefully in about 30 minutes, we will have some canned chicken stock. Yay, I'm so relieved. As you can see, it did get up to probably about 11 psi, which is not a big deal, I don't think. The next step, it has been 25 minutes, so the next step is to turn off the heat and let the pressure come all the way down to 0. It's going to take a little while for that to happen, and once the pressure's back down to 0, then I need to let it sit for about 5 more minutes before I take the lid off, just to let the pressure equalize inside and outside of the cans. And once the lid's off, I'll let the cans sit and cool in the water for about 10 more minutes, and then they'll be ready to take out. Alright, my pressure gauge is back down to 0, as you can see, and I set a timer for 5 minutes. That is almost about to go off in just a second. So now it is safe to open the lid. I'm gonna be very careful about this. It's a little warm, so let me get a hot pad. That's probably why I couldn't get it open. This will also drop down. Alright, I just closed it and reopened it, and now it's gonna work for me. And I'm gonna be very careful not to vent steam towards myself or the camera. So I'm gonna open it away. Fingers crossed I don't have any broken glass. My water looks clean, that's a great sign. All my jars are full. Ooh, that's hot. Steamy. Alright, I'm gonna let this sit. They're actually, I can tell that the broth in the cans are still boiling. I am definitely gonna wait for about 10 minutes before I start taking these out. I am gonna need a jar remover to take them out when I'm ready to do that, and you also want to make sure that you don't put them on your bare counter, especially if you have stone. I have laminate, so I don't want to melt that. But you also don't want to put hot jars on a cold surface. They will break. Wow, they're already making popping noises. Alright, so I'm going to turn my camera off while I wait for about 10 minutes. I'm going to get dinner started as well. And when I'm ready to take these out, I'll just go ahead and start my second batch. I won't bother filming that because I've already shown you almost the whole process here. But I would call this, so far, a success. We'll see if they are sealed tomorrow, but fingers crossed that they are. Alright, I am very carefully removing these jars. You do not want to tip them at all. There will be water on the top of the canning lid, but that's okay. It'll evaporate by tomorrow. I can still see bubbles in the broth, so it is still extremely hot. I'm using a hot pad and my removing tool. And I'm gonna go ahead and take the other 6 jars out, start my water simmering, and I'll get ready for the next batch. I just remembered you want these to be about 2 finger widths apart so they have ample space to cool. So I'm gonna spread these out just a little bit. There you have it. I'll be back tomorrow to check the seal on these and we will see how I did. Alright, it has been about 16 hours since these finished processing. They all were making that lovely pinging noise last night, so I have high hopes, but it's time to test the seals on these. So I'm going to go ahead and remove the rings. This one feels good. I can't take the lid off. That feels good too. Oh my gosh, you guys, I think this worked. I am so excited. I didn't lose any liquid in my canner. The liquid stayed clear through both batches of stock. I did process these 2 pint jars with a few of the quart jars. I just made sure to process it for the longer amount of time, so in this case it was 25 minutes. This one's stuck on there good. Oh, I already took that one off. No wonder I was having issues. These are all feeling really nice and tight. And once I get all these rings off, the last step will just be to wipe down the outside of the jars with a clean rag to make sure that the jars are clean on the outside. I didn't use filtered water or anything to can these. I mean, I did use filtered water in the actual stock itself, but not in my pressure canner, so there's a bunch of white powdery nastiness on the outside. I'm pretty sure it's just solids that had been dissolved in the water that maybe evaporated or just splashed up on top to the top of the can. So I'm gonna get a wet rag. I'm actually out of dish towels right now because they're all either dirty or being used. So I'm gonna just use a paper towel this time, wipe down the outsides of these, and then we should be good. I am also going to go ahead and make a note that this is the time when you really want to label your jars. Even if you think you know what's in them, you might forget, and you definitely will need to know the date when these were canned, at least the year. So I don't think that these are going to last the whole year just because we're going to go through them really quickly. I'm also giving a couple away, maybe more, to my mom and my sister. My mom's on her way over to come and pick up a couple for her and my sister. But I'm still gonna label these lids, and you have to use a new lid every single time you can anything, so using a Sharpie is not a huge deal. I really can't tell you how relieved I am that these sealed properly, and I'm excited to break one of these open and cook with it. The quart-sized jars are perfect for soups. I can't remember if I mentioned this yesterday when I was doing the canning, but you can do this for chicken and dumplings, chicken stew, chicken noodle soup, anything like that. There's also quite oftentimes chicken stock and tomato soup or potato soup. It's almost soup weather. It's almost the end of August. I think today is the 29th, so hopefully soon we will be getting into soup weather. I won't hold my breath because it's been such a hot and unpredictable year, but I'm hoping at least by the end of next month it'll be time to make some soups. I will also have a newborn most likely by then. Maybe early October I will, but we will see when he is ready to get here. And soup is something really easy you can just throw together and let simmer for a few hours, so I think we'll probably be taking advantage of that while I'm preoccupied with taking care of a new baby. It'll be our first. Time for the Sharpie.